He was declared dead, a fishing accident. Bofty never recovered. The insurance man said sometimes the sea keeps them. That was 40 years ago. I was 40 then. A widow with 2 little boys and a bakery business that was just flour and debt. The grief almost ate me alive. For a year, I was a ghost in my own life. Then the anger came. A cleaner, hotter fire. I had to survive. For my boys, so I took that pittance of life insurance. I mortgaged the bakery to the hilt, and I worked 18-hour days, kneading dough before sunrise, doing books after. Then I turned Margaret's loaves into Maggie's empire. Cakes for celebrities, bread for 5-star hotels. I built it brick by brick. My sons, Michael and David, they grew up in that kitchen. They learned the business from the ground up. I taught them everything. How to balance sugar and salt, how to read a balance sheet, how to look a man in the eye and know if he's lying. Especially that. I never remember. Men came, sure, suitors smelling of money or loneliness, but my heart was a locked vault. The only love I had left was for my boys and my empire. The years turned, the business ballooned. We went national. I bought the building, then the block. My sons became men, then executives. Michael, the eldest, with his father's smile but my ruthlessness. David softer, a dreamer, but with a heart of pure gold. They were my world, my reward for all that sleeplessness. Then, on a Tuesday, my assistant's voice came through the intercom, shaky. "Ms. Moggy, there's a gentleman here to see you. He insists." I was irritated. I had a merger on the line. "Send him to appointments." I snapped. "He says it's personal. He says he's your husband." The world didn't spin, it froze. Solid. Every sound sucked out of the room. My heart didn't beat. It became a stone in my chest. I heard myself say, "Send him in." The door opened, and there he stood, Robert, my Robert. Older, weathered, hair gray and thin, but the same sly blue eyes, the same curve to his smirk. He wore a cheap suit that hung on him. He looked poor, he looked desperate, he looked alive. "Hello, Maggie," he said. His voice was rougher, sand by years in cheap whiskey, I guess. Long time. I didn't faint, I didn't scream. I looked at the man who let me mourn him for 4 decades. I looked at the ghost who'd haunted my quiet moments, and all I felt was a cold, clarifying rage. "You're supposed to be dead," I said, my voice eerily calm. "Turns out I'm a hard man to drown," he chuckled, stepping in, his eyes greedily taking in my oak-paneled office, the city skyline behind me. "You've done all right for yourself. A widow's pension went a long way, I see." The insult was calculated. He was probing. I stayed silent, letting him squirm. I got swept out. He began, weaving his tale. A current, a foreign fishing boat, amnesia, a life in another country, struggling to remember, a recent knock on the head that brought it all flooding back. The story was pathetic, full of holes you could drive a truck through. He'd rehearsed it, but not well enough. I knew every lie in the book. I'd heard them from suppliers, from rivals, from men who wanted my money. He finished, expecting tears, perhaps expecting a welcome. I steepled my fingers. "What do you want, Robert?" He smiled, a flash of the charming boy I'd married. "I want to come home, Maggie. I want my family back. My share of all this." There it was, the truth, ugly and bare. He saw the empire and wanted a crown. He didn't ask about his sons. He asked for his share. "Your share?" I repeated. "You have no share. You've been legally dead for 38 years. Your assets were dissolved. You are a non person." His smile tightened. "I'm standing right here, flesh and blood. The law will see it my way." A long-lost husband returned to his grieving wife. The press will eat it up. Baker Magazine, miracle. Or, he leaned forward, his voice dropping, they'll hear a different story. About a wife who maybe knew her husband wasn't dead, who maybe had a reason to want him gone, who built an empire on a lie. Blackmail. So crude, so predictable. He thought I was still the soft woman he'd left behind. He didn't see the steel that had formed in the furnace of his abandonment. I let a flicker of fear cross my face, a calculated tremble in my hand. "The boys," I whispered, "they can't know. Not like this. It would destroy them." I saw triumph in his eyes. Thought he had me. We'll tell them together, gently, after we've gotten the legalities sorted. I'm staying at the Fairview Motel, room 12. Think about it, Maggie. We can be a family again. He left with a swagger that said he'd already won. The moment the door closed, the fear vanished from my face. I picked up the phone. Not to my lawyer. First, to my head of security, a man named Arno, who had been with me since the early days. Arno, a man just left my office. Robert Gable, I want him followed every second. I want to know every breath he takes, every red hole he visits, get a full background sweep. Start 40 years ago in Cartagena, Colombia. Check maritime records, hospitals, prisons, and install cameras in room 12 of the Fairview Motel. Audio and visual. Do it within the hour. Next, I called my sons to a private dinner. I served them their favorite, my dark chocolate torte. I watched them, these men I had created, Michael sharp and ambitious, David, kind and trusting. I had a strange visit today, I began, my voice steady. A man claiming to be your father. David's fork clattered to his plate. Michael's eyes narrowed to slits. It's a fraud, Michael stated immediately. A con man seeing dollar signs. David looked heartbroken. But what if it's him? What if he's been lost all this time? I told them Robert's ridiculous amnesia story. I showed them the vulnerability I had shown Robert. He wants money. He wants a piece of what we built. He's threatening to go to the press with lies if I don't comply. Michael was on his feet, pacing. We ruin him. We expose him before he can speak. David looked pained. We should hear him out. If it's really Dad, it's not your father, I said softly, but with finality. The man who was your father loved you. This is a ghost, and we will handle him. I gave them their roles. Michael, you will lead our legal team. We will not be reactive. We will file a preemptive suit for fraud, emotional distress, and attempted extortion. Make it brutal. David, you will be the public face. You will prepare a statement about our family's privacy, our grief, and our dismay at being targeted by a cruel imposter. You are the heart. Michael is the fist. They agreed, a unified front, but I was playing a deeper game. Alone in my study later, Arno called. You were right, Miss Gable. He went straight from your office to a dive bar, met with a man named Leah Ferrer. Ferrer has a record fraud, forgery. They were celebrating. Robert was flashing a wad of cash. Our contact in Colombia just faxed a report. Robert Gable was arrested there 39 years ago, not for amnesia, for insurance fraud on a commercial fishing boat. He served 5 years. He was released, changed his name, and has been running small-time cons across South America and Florida ever since. The dead husband routine is his specialty. He's done it twice before with wealthy widows. One paid him off, the other died unexpectedly before the police could be involved. My blood ran cold, then hot. This wasn't just abandonment. This was a predatory pattern. He was a spider, and I was to be his next fly. And the other widow, her death was a coincidence. He'd arranged. I was sure of it. He hadn't just come for money. He'd come to take everything. And if I stood in his way, I'd end up like that other woman. Room 12's feed came online on my monitor. I watched him count his meager cash, then make a call on a burner phone. She bought it, he sneered. The scared little rich lady act. We move to phase 2 tomorrow. The loving reunion with the kids. Once we're in the house, we find the will. A little accident happens to her. The sons get the business, but dear old Dad, back from the dead, gets a huge settlement for his trauma and a controlling interest as the surviving spouse. It's airtight. The man on the other end, Leo, laughed. You sure the boys will play along? Boppett's face turned vicious. Mikhail's just like me, he'll see the opportunity. David's soft. If he causes trouble, accidents happen in kitchens, big, busy kitchens. I sat in the dark, the blue glow of the monitor on my face. He wasn't just a ghost, he was a cancer, and he was planning to metastasize through my entire family, killing me and corrupting my sons. The law was too slow. Michael's lawsuit was a pissure against the tank. David's compassion was a weakness to be exploited. I had to protect my empire, my real legacy, my children. I had to become something he would not recognize, something he could not anticipate. The County Baker was gone. The grieving widow was a fiction. I was the general of my own destiny, and a war had been declared on my doorstep. I would not defend, I would attack, and I would do it with the patience of a woman who had waited 40 years without even knowing she was waiting. He thought he'd return to a frail, old woman sitting on a pile of gold. He was about to learn he'd walked into a fortress, and I was its queen, its architect, and its executioner. The game was on. But I had written the rules 40 years ago, in the fire of his betrayal. And rule number 1 was simple: you don't get to drown me twice. I began my campaign not with a shout, but with a whisper. I had Arno leak a meticulously crafted rumor to the financial press. Maggie's empire was exploring a massive, market-shaking merger that would require a full, airtight audit of all family holdings and historical ownership. It created a plausible, urgent reason for intense legal scrutiny. Robert, watching the business news in his motel room, would see it as pressure to move faster, let him sweat. I then visited David. I found him in the test kitchen, perfecting a rye loaf. "David," I said, my voice thick with a manufactured tremor, "I'm so scared. This man, ... He feels evil." I had a private investigator look. "He thinks this Robert might be dangerous, violent. I need you to promise me something, for your own safety. And Michael's, do not be alone with him, ever. If he requests a meeting, you bring Arno. You record everything." David saw my fear, and his protective instincts flared. "Mom, of course, I won't let him near you." Gutai had insulated my softer son with a shield of chivalry. With Michael, I took the opposite tack. I showed him the security footage audio. "Listen to him," I said, playing the clip of Robert plotting my accident. Michael's face hardened into marble. "I'll kill him," he breathed. "No," I said, placing a firm hand on his arm. "You will do something smarter. You will become his best friend." Michael stared at me, revolted. "You want me to befriend this animal who wants you dead?" "I want you to be the snake in his ear," I explained. "He thinks you're like him, ruthless, ambitious. Use that. Get Klusgani's confidence. Make him believe you're open to his plan, that you see the business potential in removing the old guard. That's me. Feed him just enough truth to be believable. You will be our inside man." I saw the strategic mind I'd nurtured grasp the brutal elegance of it. He nodded, a soji, accepting a mission. The stage was set. Robert, impassioned, demanded a family dinner at my home to reconnect. I agreed, playing the reluctant hostess. Then I arrived. My penthouse, all sharp edges and cool modern art, felt like a theater. Robert arrived with Leo, his hulking friend, who was clearly muscle. I let them in, wearing a simple, expensive dress, my posture slightly stooped, playing the overwhelmed old woman. David was tense, hovering near me. Michael, however, was a revelation. He shook Robert's hand with a firm, businesslike grip. "We should talk privately after," Michael said, his tone implying a shared understanding. Robert's eyes gleamed. He thought his seed had found fertile soil. Over dinner, Robert laid on the charm, telling fabricated, wistful stories of our early days. I let a single, perfectly timed tear trace my cheek. David looked agonized. Michael watched, calculating. Then, Robert overplayed his hand. He reached across the table, patting my hand. "We'll make new memories, Maggie, in this beautiful home." I withdrew my hand as if burned. "This home was built on flour and sleepless nights you never saw. You have no place here." The room froze. Robert's mask slipped, revealing a flash of venom. "It's our place. The law will see it that way. I've already spoken to a lawyer. It was the opening I needed." "So have I said softly, and I nodded to Michael. My son cleared his throat. "Actually, I've taken the liberty of retaining the finest familial law firm in the city on behalf of the family estate. They're quite aggressive. They're filing motions to have you declared legally deceased in perpetuity and to obtain a restraining order based on extortionate threats. They also have a team of forensic accountants ready to dissect every cent you've ever touched. Robert paled. Leo shifted in his seat. Your little Robert began, but Michael cut him off, his voice icy. They also have the police report from Cartagena 1984, insurance fraud, and the death certificate of a widow in Miami, one Sylvia Greer. Her family is very interested in talking to you. I watched the blood drain from Robert's face. He hadn't expected this. He thought he was dealing with a scared old woman and her sons, not a coordinated assault. This is nonsense, he blustered. But the fear was there. Get out, I said, my voice no longer frail, but quiet and final. Get out of my home. They left, sputtering threats. The door closed. David exhaled shakily. Michael looked at me, a new respect in his eyes. Phase 1 complete. He's off balance. I knew a cornered rat was most dangerous. Arno's surveillance confirmed it. Back in room 12, Robert was panicking. They know about Miami. We need to move now, tomorrow. We force our way into the corporate offices. We take control. If the old bird gets in the way, we accelerate the plan. Leo agreed. They were going for a coup. Perfect. I wanted him to make his move. The next morning, I went to the flagship bakery downtown, the heart of my empire. I made a show of it, telling my assistant I needed to feel the dough to think. Robert and Leo, watching, saw their chance. They followed. I was in the vast, industrial kitchen alone, the ovens humming, when they entered through the back delivery door. The security cameras, I'd had malfunction earlier. Maggie, Robert said, pulling a small, ugly pistol from his jacket. Leo blocked the other exit. We're doing this the hard way. You're going to call your lawyer, right now, and sign over power of attorney to me. You're going to say you're unwell. Then, you're going to have a tragic, fatal fall down these lovely stainless steel stairs. He gestured to the metal staircase leading to the flour silos. I didn't plead. I didn't cry. I looked at him, and for the first time, I let him see the woman I had become. The steel, the ice, the 40 years of fury. You shouldn't have come back, Robert, I said, and I clapped my hands twice, sharp echoes in the cavernous space. From behind giant mixing vats, from the walk-in freezer, Arno and 3 of his largest, most silent security men emerged. From the office overlooking the kitchen, Michael and David stepped into view, their faces grim. The police officers who had been waiting with them moved forward, hands on their holsters. Robert's gun wavered. It's a trap, he whispered, horrified. You were never the hunter here, I said, walking slowly towards him as the police surrounded. Leo, disarming him. You were the mouse. You came for a fortune. But you walked into a crime scene. Attempted extortion. Conspiracy to commit murder. The recording of you planning my accident is already with the district attorney. The testimony from Sylvia Greer's son is on its way. You see, I didn't just defend myself. I gathered every piece of your poised history and laid it all at your feet. He was handcuffed, his face a mask of utter disbelief. As they led him away, he screamed back at me, "You're a monster. I'm your husband." I finally walked up to him, close enough to smell his cheap cologne in desperation. My voice was for him alone, a low, final whisper. No, my husband was a good man. He died 40 years ago. You're just the ghost I'm finally putting to rest. The doors closed behind him. The silence in the kitchen was profound. David rushed to me, holding me. Michael stood tall, the master of the legal battlefield to come. The empire was secure, but my work wasn't done. In the ensuing weeks, I used every ounce of my influence. Robert's past was unveiled in court with surgical precision. The Miami case was reopened. He was sentenced to life without parole, a forgotten monster locked away where he could never harm another family. Leo flipped, providing every damning detail. After the trial, I gathered my sons. This empire, I said, was built because a man left me for dead. It is strong because it was forged in betrayal. But its true strength is not in the money. It is in the loyalty we have for each other. Never forget that. The world is full of Roberts, people who see love as weakness, family as a target. Do not be soft, but never become them. Be smarter, be a fortress for each other. I am 80 years old. A dead man came back, thinking he would find a weak old woman to devour. He found a general instead. He didn't like what I had become, but I did. I liked her very much. She saved her family, she protected her legacy, and she finally buried a ghost that had haunted her for a lifetime. Not with a headstone, but with a life so fiercely, brilliantly lived that his shadow could not hope to touch it. That is the only revenge that ever matters. That is the lesson I earned in these 40 long years. Don't wait for justice to find you. Build a world where it has no choice.